Yeah.
don't think any of them did. I remember.
Yeah, the guys we always do the Thanksgiving at our house. We've done that since we've done that for
Oh, you're 1 minute away.
25 years. My wife hates cooking turkeys or chickens or anything like that, so I've always done it.
Yeah.
And the boys take care of the other stuff. They come over early, and the girls hang out, shoot the breeze. And
Good evening. We are now at 6:30. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. We will begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you. First up tonight is we do have an agenda adjustment to make. We are going to move our new business 7.1. Did you say before or after reports, Katie?
Say before.
Before reports? So before 5.
Oh, it says 4, and then I put 5. I apologize.
Or if I'm looking at the wrong one
No,
again.
you're right. It was my error.
Okay, so we're good with that. Do we, any concerns, questions? Okay. 2.1, approve the minutes of November 6th, Board of Directors meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, geez. Thanks, Jill. See, I take. No, you're right. You're right.
You were in a
Thank
rhythm.
you. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? That's right. Keep me in check, guys. Thank you.
Let's have it.
Okay, next is our petitions and communications. Do we have any this evening? Okay. So on to our reports. So right before reports, we'll start with the, so I'm horrible with front and back. So the board would like to recognize our golf team, our high school, for receiving the Maine Principals Sportsmanship Award. Congratulations. And we'd like to welcome you up to,
Yeah.
go ahead.
This is Coach Zewis, with some of his golf players. And it's been since 1997 that Oak Hill High School's received a sportsmanship award. So that's really impressive. So I did ask Coach if he would introduce the players that are here and recognize our team.
Oh my God. This is the second.
Yeah.
This is the second most prestigious award in sports, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, definitely.
It's been since 1997. The MPA has given Oak Hill the sportsmanship banner. I am so proud of golfers. I'm just going to say this. This truly is a golfer's award, not a coach's award, because in golf, you have no officials. You're out on the course, often yards away from where I am. You call your own penalties. You keep your own score. If you and your opponent have a disagreement, you have to figure it out. You come up, you compare scores. It's all on the players. So to get this award is to say something about the 14 players on my team, and it makes me very happy. So, and yes, since 1997, we have not received one, and I'm so proud. This is Sophia Darloff. She goes by Darloff. She has played golf for 3 years, 2 years. She says the golf course is her safe place. This is Leland DeHaan, sorry, who is a ninth grader who's played golf for about 4 months. We have 8 ninth graders on the team, so I hope to not only bring a couple more of these to Oak Hill, but maybe in a couple years we can get the other one. But as of right now, I couldn't be more proud of the team to bring this to RSU4 and to Oak Hill High School.
Thank you. Congratulations. That's awesome. I have a hand up. Jill, go ahead.
Point of order, there's no public comment.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh.
How do we fix that, Katie? We did. I double, triple checked this thing, guys. Double, triple checked. I go, okay, what have we missed before?
Now we gotta go to quadruple check.
Quadruple check.
So now you have an agenda.
Agenda adjustment. We'll just add it in right here. Is that okay? We'll add in our public comment.
Do you need a motion?
Yes. Yeah.
I make a motion to add public comment between petitions and communication and 7.1 and reports after 7.1 before reports.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Okay, there's unanimous, so we don't need to call for those opposed. All right, thank you for that, Jill. We will now move on to our public comment section and invite anybody here who would like to come up to the mic to speak. All right, and seeing none, we will move on, and we will have, we need to lock some of these fields down. That's what we'll do on our next agenda. So we'll go move on to the superintendent's report, oral report.
I'm going to just move towards for our principals report because I have a lot coming up. So let's go with the principals.
All right, so on to our administrator's report, and we'll start with, we have Marco and Sue for Oak Hill High School listed first.
Good evening, everybody. So nice to see you guys, and thank you for a few moments of your time to share the most recent happenings at Oak Hill High School. Let's see, there we go. To begin, I'd like to update you on our progress to our school-wide goals. As you may recall during my last report, we are focused on the areas of attendance, behaviors, and WEA math and reading. And I've color-coded our results to show you our results to date. Green, we have met or are on track. Yellow, we are close to our goal, or red, we need improvement towards our goal. And so you can see the comparisons there between our scores at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. Let's see, our attendance goal is set at 90%, and we'll be continuing our weekly attendance meetings and have included a new procedure. As I mentioned before, Raider Connection teachers reaching out to families after 3 unexcused absences. And currently we are holding strong at 88%. We'll continue our focus on NWEA scores in reading and math at 45%. As you recall, our goal was 45% last year, which we achieved in math and came just short in reading. Our fall testing shows promising results in math and additional work to be done in reading. Our final goal will be continue a reduction in office managed behaviors. As you may recall, our goal was a reduction in office managed behaviors last year, and we met that goal at 190 incidences, down 36% from the year before at 296. And as of Sunday, when I was putting this together, we had 32 incidents, which is roughly a quarter of the way through the school year. It's too bad he left because I could have had him stay and talk a little bit about Socktober, but Aspen's here too, and she was a big part of this. So I just want to give a shout out in regards to Socktober. So next, I'd like to highlight a community outreach project called Socktober, and the event is coordinated by our science teacher, Mr. Ed Zewis. It's a celebration of cool socks and a fundraiser for new socks for those in need. The goal for this year was to raise 300 pairs of socks for New Beginnings in Lewiston, and our Socktober drive collected 372 pairs of socks, which is truly impressive, and it's a testament to our commitment to support those in need. And just again, thank you to Aspen. She's really bumped up the number of socks, our goal in particular, to be collected. I think when we started, it was maybe like 100 pairs of socks. Does that sound about right, Aspen? What? 150, right? And she's like, we can do more than that, which obviously we can. So I appreciate you pushing that. And then finally, I would like to highlight our largest co-curricular group, FBLA, which is advised by teachers Angela Roy and Erica Federico. FBLA held its installation ceremony on November 7th with a huge turnout by the community. The theme of the year is Dare to Dream, Dare to Lead, and their state service project is raising funds for Mission Working Dogs. And Mission Working Dogs is an organization that trains service dogs for those in need. And Sue Rennie was instrumental in bringing her and her organization to Oak Hill High School to share her story and her wonderful dogs. So we look forward to the activity of the group, and we'll report on their progress as they move forward. I would like to say this concludes my report, and thank you for your time. But I also want to make sure that I shout out to our firefighters in the area. We've had some activity up around a high school or near the high school, and I just want to say thank you to Androscoggin County Sheriff's Department, Wales Fire Department, Sabattis Fire Department, just for being on site and helping us support. Through those situations. It's obviously a little unnerving to hear that there's smoke near the back parking lot when you think it's just kids burning their tires on a big truck. And then it turns out to be flames in a woods. And then you get a little nervous, and then you call, 911 and everybody else and set things in motion. But they were great in coming over and supporting us through that. So I just want to make sure that publicly I thank them very much for their support. And that concludes my report.
While we're here, I'm going to do the report for Sabattis Primary. Miss Poole is under the weather. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. Student growth. One way we plan on targeting student growth goals is teachers collaborating on Wednesdays during professional learning groups to review curriculum, instructional approaches, and student data. 2 academic coaches who work with our staff are Becky D'Alessandro and Brandy Munsey. Tracy Ireland is our PBIS coach. We can go through this slide. As you can see, her growth goals, the growth goals from last year. Math, 50%, almost making it with in the 23-24, and this fall, 29. Growth in reading, their goal is 50%. Last year, 39%. And this year, 33.6. I think that should be rounded to 34. Attendance, 95%. 87% last fall. 90% as of now. And behavior decreased using Swiss. Office referrals by 5%. Last year, 277, and as of this fall, 122. And if you have questions, you're going to have to ask Ms. Poole. Right. Teachers collaborate on Wednesdays during professional learning groups to review curriculum, instructional approaches, and student data. Here you can see Becky D'Alessandro, Brandy Munsey, and Tracy Ireland is not pictured here, but they are working together. I believe Cherie shared today in our PBIS meeting, their students, teachers are very excited about PBIS. They're all on board. They love building activities, rewards, and something like 3 hours of just excited planning. And you can tell the students are filling the tickets and earning rewards, and it definitely is making a difference at SPS.
Pumpkin Patch Fun. Our students had a blast during Garden Pumpkin Day. With yoga mats and blankets laid out, they gathered near the community berry board for story time, ready to listen and explore. They also worked together to guess pumpkin seed counts and decorate pumpkins. What an amazing autumn day in the garden. Special thanks to the Sabattis Rec Garden Club. This fantastic event was hosted by the Sabattis Rec Garden Club and led by our very own Garden Club coordinator, Kelly Glisgo Stowell. Students enjoyed the activities and savored fresh apple cider from Willow Pond Farm, making it a full day of fun, learning, and community spirit. Harvest memories. It's all on one slide. Yep. A huge thanks goes out to Miss Bauer's class from the high school and our friend George for joining us. Our students enjoyed hands-on tasks like scooping, rinsing, and counting pumpkin seeds. They also were creative with potato stampers to design their own pumpkin faces, plus every student took home a special mini pumpkin or gourd. And that's that.
There we go.
Thank you. Now we have Michaela Stevens and Brian Daniels for Oak Hill Middle School.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Brian. So we are also going to do a goal progress update so you can see where we are. We have our NOEA goals for math and reading both growing 45%, and we are on track. For math, we have surpassed our goal, so we're hoping to stay steady into spring. For reading, we are almost there, and we're making really good strides to do that. So just 2% more, and we will hit that goal as well. So we're definitely going to put a lot of stock into our NOEA and looking at how to make that testing session more enjoyable for students with little snack bags, just special things that they can have throughout the test, maybe some mints or gum to get them through. Our attendance goal, we're doing better and we're getting closer to that 95%. And as I've talked about before, and I'll show on our next slide, we have different committees that are helping progress our goals forward. And our attendance committee has been working very hard, digging into data, reaching out to parents, and also providing positive reinforcement to students to get to school. And then our behavior data, we are at our 90% with students receiving one or less office referrals. I have a feeling we will not meet that goal if we're at 90% right now in the year. So we're definitely going to have to reassess and look at how we can set our goal for next year, and then also how we can maintain as close to 90% as possible throughout the rest of the year. And 90% is a very ambitious goal. That's good. But I don't think our numbers are going to change that much to make us be able to meet our goal. Okay, so a few highlights from Oak Hill Middle School. On the left-hand side, we took a field trip to Kobe College with our GT art group, and students had the chance to engage in 2 unique learning experiences, and of course eat in the cafeteria, which had ice cream. So that was definitely a highlight for them. But they had a tour experience. Students explored how artists represent nature, the environment, and the land, deepening their understanding of art and its connection to the world around us. They also, if you see on the right-hand side of those pictures under the Kobe College visit, they had the studio workshop inspired by Maya Lin's Pin River Kiss Me. Students created their own pin art sculptures using similar materials and their personal experiences with nature. A big thank you to Miss Williams, our art teacher, and Miss Cody, our GT teacher, for organizing this incredible opportunity, and to our parent chaperone who attended this trip. On the top right-hand side, we have some school spirit. 8th grade won the Spirit Stick again for the 2nd month in a row during our recent school assembly, showing amazing enthusiasm and pride. We have our next school assembly on the Tuesday before break, so we'll see if they take it home again or if it will go to another grade level. In the middle, we had some students make some cupcakes and deliver it to staff throughout the school. And it happened to be Miss Grondin was there as well, got her cupcake. I heard that they were delicious. Unfortunately, I'm gluten and dairy free, so I couldn't attest to it myself. But they're very accommodating. Down in the bottom right corner, I added some committee updates. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to go through some of the things that we have added. For our multi-tiered systems of supports, our MTSS committee, we're creating student groupings to better meet their needs while taking stock of our current resources. We're also reviewing any additional materials or support teachers might require to enhance their instructions and interventions. For our attendance committee, we have implemented reward systems and recognition incentives to promote attendance. Data is being shared with parents to keep them informed, and we're exploring resources to guide our efforts for improving attendance rates. For our BAR committee, which is building assets reducing risks, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, it's been a long day today. Our focus has been on delivering relevant and timely iTime activities that meet the seasonal and developmental needs of our students. Additionally, we are ensuring that our BAR meetings are efficient, followed established protocols and processes to maximize their impact. And talking about timely, coming up with like the season of being thankful, we did our lollipop letters today. I think it was today. But anyways, they wrote letters to people that they were thankful for and attached a little lollipop with it, and it just spread joy throughout the school. So they could give it to someone in the school, they could give it to someone at home. So it's going to be people within our school community and or just our community in general that will receive those, and it was a nice highlight. For PBIS, positive behavior interventions and supports, we are emphasizing the importance of consistently recognizing students for good behavior. Students with strong behavioral records are given priority in the school-wide games during grade level competitions for the Spirit Stick. We're also exploring more ways to reward grade levels for their collective effort and responsible behavior. And as we enter a season of gratitude, I just want to thank our students, staff, and parents. It's the small, everyday acts of kindness and thoughtfulness that truly make the difference in our school community.
All right, and good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to give a quick middle school athletics update. So first off, you see our Lady Raiders soccer team on the left. I just wanted to recognize them. They were the runners-up in the Capital Area League Middle School Soccer Conference Championship, which is a pretty big feat. I don't know, looking back at the record book, it's been a very long time since our girls soccer program has made it to a conference championship. They, like I said, they were the runners-up, but they played well, and just the fact that they made it that far was a great feat. So just kind of wanted to recognize that program. And then also, Wade Middle School sports work, basketball has already started. There's about a week and a half to 2 week gap in between soccer to basketball. And there's just a couple of our students sporting their new basketball uniforms this winter that we just got. So very excited about those. Those were quite overdue. If you would have seen the uniform / pennies they were using before, it was hard to differentiate if it was actually a game uniform or just an old hand-me-down practice penny. So very nice upgrade there, and they're just finished their third game tonight. I believe girls are 3-0 and boys are 2-1. So it's a great start to the basketball season as well. So
Go
thank you very
Raiders.
much.
Thank you. And now we'll have Jenny Hudner for Carrie Ricker.
Good afternoon. I too am going to share some progress update on our growth goals. Similar to the other schools, we have a growth goal for math and reading NWEA. You can see our spring data that they succeeded in the fall of the spring of last year in their math, and we are working towards that for our fall data. I'm interested to see once we get our winter scores together how we can see some progress from the fall to the winter and what we can see. For reading, we have started making some progress compared to last year, but we are still working hard using our Wednesdays to meet as grade level teams, to work with the math and the literacy coach, to check and adjust their instruction, and to redo some groupings. We also have attendance that we are well on our way to meeting our goal of 95%. I shared some data as of last year where we are since I took the data from the end of October of this year. So we are just about where we were last year, maybe a little bit ahead. And also for office referrals, a decrease in 5% from the previous year. This is going to be a little trickier to look at the data because Swiss was only used at Carrie Ricker starting in February of last year. So I put the totals there, was 302, and that's kind of where they were from February to the end of the year. So far we have 163. It is a decrease, but we really won't be able to tell until I have some more months into the year to see where we're going. Math night on November 7th, Carrie Ricker hosted a Falling for Math night. We had 150 students and family members attend and participate in a variety of math games and activities. Mrs. Witham had several goals for the evening. Those 3 goals were families will experience some of the major topics their children are working on. They would offer ideas of how to interact mathematically with their children and find joy in doing math. At the end of the event, participants agreed that these goals had been met. That night, they worked on a game that works on addition and subtraction skills called I Have, You Need. This has been taught to all the students at Carrie Ricker. That night, parents were taught the game, played a few rounds, and were challenged to play at home with their children. Students also played games that reinforced understanding of odd and even numbers, place value concepts, and addition and multiplication fact knowledge. They measured sides of boxes to the nearest inch or centimeter, were challenged to consider area and volume of these same boxes. Families worked together on comparing 2 quantities of items by asking how many times larger or smaller one quantity is than another, and noticed and wondered about various kinds of graphs. Carrie Ricker's gym was filled with math talk and fun. We hope that enthusiasm for math continues for the rest of the school year. In October, Litchfield Fire Department came to the school for fire prevention and safety, and a big shout out to the fire department and Mr. Sherman for coming over, and he actually was shooting the hose, and the kids loved that, and they got to go on a fire truck and learn a little bit about fire prevention and safety. We also had our Halloween assembly where we recognized our awesome owls, students who exemplify Carrie Ricker's core values of kindness, respect, responsibility, and safety. 2 students are nominated by their peers, while others are nominated by their teachers. During the assembly, we celebrated October birthdays with a fun mummy wrapping challenge. And lastly, a special shout out to our art teacher, Jessica Lopes, for her incredible work with the 3rd graders and their beautiful projects.
Thank you. And now Jan LaValle for Libby Tozier. Just no more jumping spiders, guys. Oh, yeah.
All right, good evening. I'm going to be sharing some information about Libby Tozier tonight and the goals that we've set. You're going to notice that our goals will look a little bit different because we're the beginning school. We have the pre-K and kindergarten students, so we're the foundational step, and where students are taking the NWEA for the first time. So this is our initial data that I'll be sharing out with you tonight, and then later on in the school year when they take it again, we'll be able to share out the growth goal. So our kindergarten students performed quite well during this initial assessment. On the chart, you can see that 68% of the kindergartners scored in the top 3 quartiles based on nationally normed data in math, and then 75% in reading. So they will now have a growth goal calculated, and when they take the test again in the spring, we'll be able to report how many students met their targeted goal. Attendance is important at school, and we're proud to see that our percentage has gone up just a little bit. Our young students are building up their immunities, so we do anticipate this beginning of the school year in these early winter months that a lot of germs are going around and kids are having to stay home. So we're working towards our goal of 95%, and some strategies include our positive behavior supports and family engagement events that you'll see some pictures of in just a little bit. In addition, our SST team, so that's our student support team, is making some personal connections with families that are struggling with absenteeism and working on individual needs and plans. So our final goal you see around there is around behaviors, specifically around those office referrals. And same thing as Jenny just shared, we started with our Swiss reporting system in February. So the data is a little bit different. Also, this is the first year that Libby Tozier has had a full-time administrator. So we're noticing an increase in the referrals just because more availability is there. We are, let's see, noticing that about 6% of our students are a majority of those referrals, so really working on that goal of 90% of our kids having one or less referrals. So we're still working within that goal. We're working with our behavior coach as well as that same SST team to work on proactive plans to decrease the referrals, especially for that subset of students. In the next slides, I'm going to share some pictures information about what we're doing at school. So in this picture, this is our kindergarten huddle that recently happened. Our kindergartners gather in the hallway and teachers discuss SOPs. Those are the standard operating procedures. And some students even demonstrate them or share a strategy that they might be using. So these have been a really positive addition to our school this year, in addition to our full school-wide community meetings. This is a great example of community building that encourages students to be present and positively engaged at school. We recently hosted a family engagement night, so Pop into Libby Tozier was our theme. We had our reading coach, Becky D'Alessandro, did a wonderful, planned a wonderful evening in conjunction with a group of teachers. They included an informational talk for parents. There was a bingo game for students to participate in. We got back together in the gym to enjoy popcorn and practice some of the things that we just talked about, and there were door prizes. So it was a really great evening with great attendance. We are planning a craft night next month for December, and then also a math night later this year. So we're hoping to get families to come into school. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and now we have our student rep report. We have Lily Ames and Aspen Gothier.
Hello. I'm going to do this. Okay, so first we have sports. Our winter sports have started up with tryouts and practices, and we can't wait to see what the season brings us. And then JMG got to go to the Animal Refuge League of Greater Portland, where we got to learn about different career opportunities in animal shelters, and it was very popular. We're even thinking about maybe being able to do a second round for the students that didn't get to go. OHLA has started preparing for holiday baskets by doing some early food shopping, and soon we will be wrapping the boxes that go in each classroom where students can donate non-perishable foods.
Ms. Shaw already covered some of the stuff I was already going to talk about, so this might be a little bit repetitive, so I'm sorry. I digress. We should. So Socktober, like he said, was very successful. 372 pairs of socks, and our goal was 300, so that was awesome. They'll be donated to New Beginnings in Lewiston tomorrow at our Student of the Month Assembly. And socks may seem a little bit arbitrary, but they are one of the top items requested at shelters like New Beginnings, so it's very important to them. And also for the school and community in general, it raises awareness about things like that, and just being able to like help out in communities and get the community together to do some good. So very exciting. And we plan next year to involve other schools around. I've been talking to Mr. Zeus about that, so we're hoping to amp it up even more. Drama has begun rehearsals for the musical Cinderella. The show will be in January. The cast is a little bit small, but they are working very hard to make the production fun and awesome. FBLA has collected donations for the holiday raffle. We're currently selling raffle tickets to anyone interested. Wink, wink. They will be pulled every day in the month of December. We all are also preparing for the annual Breakfast with Santa on December 14th. Whoa. The proceeds of that will be going to Mission Working Dogs, as was explained. And since they already came to Oak Hill, the community is familiar with the mission, so we're hoping that will get some traffic as well. Academic Decathlon is still working hard to prepare for the competition, as well as recovering from the accident that happened a few weeks ago. I don't know if you guys are super familiar with that, but one of the two vans got rear-ended on a school field trip, and several students were brought to the hospital. Mr. Anderson, who teaches the class, is still recovering from some minor brain bleeding. So it's been kind of rough, but overall we are all okay and moving on. And lastly, civil rights is actually being started back up again, with their first meeting being open to anyone who's interested tomorrow, organized under Ms. Webster. So we're hoping that that will take off and we can get started on to new projects. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now we can move on to our old business. 6.1, to approve the second reading of the following policies. We have policy AC, non-discrimination, equal opportunity, and affirmative action.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? I think we're all unanimous. Sorry, I lost my paper. I mean, for real, it was literally.
You were just reading.
I was. I was. I don't even know how I make it out of bed in the morning sometimes. ACAA, harassment of students.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And unanimous. ACAB, harassment of employees.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. JIE, pregnant students.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. JLCB, immunization of students.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I just want to briefly say that, just to remind everybody that a yes vote is stripping the fundamental right of parents to make choices about what is injected into their children, as well as removes religious rights. Although it's the law, we, got to take a stand somewhere. So just so everybody's aware of that. And also, future vaccinations that may not be out there yet, that could be potentially added, would automatically be added to this.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Sure.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Robbie.
Katie, we're only talking about immunizations that are required by law, right?
In the past, previous though, there were exceptions that could be made, and we're essentially removing all exceptions.
The only exception is, right, a doctor, right, a medical.
Sure, but sometimes you don't necessarily know what's going to how you're going to react prior to receiving that. So.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't quite hear you. Passes 597 to 404. Thank you, Sam. It's me. I have hearing issues, so it's not you. All right, then we will move on to GBJC. Re-
Second.
Retention of application materials. Thank you. My pause was a little too long there. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? And unanimous. All right. Thank you, everybody. We will now move on to our new business. So the first item to discuss is 7.2, since we moved 7.1, and this is the evaluation process for our superintendent's annual evaluation. So we will be getting that underway. Christy. Yeah? You want a question? Go ahead.
She resigned.
So I think she still gets her evaluation over her past year, or I don't know. You don't think we need to do it?
No.
Okay. So
Unless,
Robbie,
unless Katie wants that. I just feel like it kind of just, it's a process, right, that we have in place, but she's not going to continue after she retires.
I know she did announce her retirement.
Yes. She didn't resign, she retired.
Does our
Sorry,
policy
different- yeah,
indicate
you know what I
that a retirement or an end of, or no desire to continue contract? I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't know. It seems so.
I'm open
I
for.
do them for all of my employees. But
I wonder if an exit interview would be a better.
Would suffice.
Yeah. I don't know.
I second the exit interview.
Vote for it.
Excuse me.
There's no motion.
Yeah, there's no motion. It was just a business on the floor. And I can look at our policy, right? Because there is a superintendent evaluation policy. I don't believe it addresses a retirement situation, but we can look at that and we can come back and just or decide not to do it. We could. I mean, it's up to you guys as a collective.
I guess my thing would be is what are we trying to get out of it by doing it when she's retiring?
Go ahead, Matt.
I'm not saying that I'm for or against it in either way. I was just curious if anyone else thought that with the search for the replacement coming up, if it would be beneficial towards that anyway.
Go ahead, Robbie.
Yeah, I just think in the past, I don't think we've had a superintendent that announced their retirement so soon. Huh?
I said which we appreciate.
Right, yes, because we have to look. Most of the time it's like after the first of the year, or they get another job and they move on and the evaluation's already been done. So I don't know if there's a precedent in our policy for it. I'm not sure. So I think it would, come down to the will of the board to decide whether or not that it's necessary. I mean, what are we going to get out of it? We're not setting goals for her. She's going to be retiring. So unless you want some goals in retirement, we can give you those.
Well, do we have goals set forth for the 24-25 year?
Yes.
Yes, but I think that's something that we can discuss amongst ourselves for the new superintendent, absolutely. When when that committee meets and we get together and decide what we want for, our new superintendent, those goals to have. I think it's appropriate for then. So, I don't think we've ever been in this scenario before, is what I'm saying. Most of the time it's like after the evaluation, or it's a long time before the evaluation if somebody's gonna, leave for another position or, resign. So.
I'm just trying to see if I can find the policy.
Oh.
I looked at it when we talked about doing this. But I mean, we did talk about it before your announcement.
So, if I may, policy BDD.
Thank you.
Section F, evaluate the superintendent and provide appropriate opportunities for the superintendent to share his or her perceptions regarding the working relationship between the board of directors and superintendent. That's all it says.
That's all it says. Where does it say it has to be done annually?
No.
No. All right. Well, do you guys want to take a vote or like a straw poll? Or go ahead, Doug.
I mean, Katie, do you feel you would benefit from going through the evaluation process with us? I mean, to
It's a
ask.
loaded question.
When Nicole and I spoke, I said, if you want me to do it, I will do it. I have a lot on my plate right now to finish the school year for all of you. If you want to take the time when you have so much on your plate, it's, I'm willing to do some bullets. It's all confidential. All the information is confidential. So I'm not sure how it would inform your next superintendent, but it's up to you. I mean, I told Nicole if the board would like me to do it, I will do it.
All right. Well, let's take a straw poll. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up meaning for what?
Thumbs up if we want to do the evaluation, and thumbs down if not. All right. Well, I think we see where we land. So I was already planning on doing it, but that's okay.
Where are we at though with extra interview? Because that is a really good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
do that
we
instead.
can gather a lot of information that will help us moving forward with the next superintendent.
Yeah. Do you want to do a quick straw poll for exit interview? I mean, that one I would absolutely. Okay. We do have a lot of work ahead of us, though, so that helps. Now, this is yours.
Did you find yourself?
Oh.
Just keep going. Then I'm just.
I mean,
Spider took it.
I put it at the bottom. I
But
found it.
between
Thank
now
you.
and then-
All right, so then we will move on. 7.3.
Okay, and I have invited Samantha to be up here as part of this discussion. You have it on your the hard copy. I think I have the latest one here.
Oh, thank you.
So obviously, this is one of the most important jobs we do every year. And so a lot of discussion around, so I apologize if as we get going, there's a lot of moving parts. Okay, so slow me down or re-ask or say, can you go over that again? Because there's different pieces going on with the investigation of the closing of Sabatis Primary. So there's going to be information about that. And so the first thing we're going to really start tackling is getting your feedback. I mean, starting with what we know are things that are going to impact the budget. Because we've heard time and time again, try to hold the line, right? So as we look at or think outside the box, or look at things differently. And so we've heard that message, and then we have also need your input right from the beginning to get where we need to be so that you can support the budget, community will support the budget, and understand why we're asking for what we're asking. I think really, and I've talked to Nicole about this, a real goal is that all of us can stand behind the budget, not only here, but also at public meeting, and also be able to talk and defend it. And so the earlier we can get what you're thinking or what you need, the better. And that's really important, because last year I think there was a lot of frustration around trying to guess what people were thinking or understand where people were coming or what was the target. Okay? So that really is the challenge. That's why we're starting earlier, is to get your feedback, to inform us as we start putting this together, having those workshops to really dive deep in more informal way so that we all are on the same page. I mean, that's the ultimate goal is, yes, it's my job to really look at everything our district needs and put the best program together for students and to be fiscally responsible. And it's Samantha's job to always look at what has been our cost patterns, reflecting on where we can do some savings if we need to do savings, like with the lease payments on the copiers, so looking at fuel, all those things that go into lines, and we're going to be working on that. And last meeting, we shared the calendar with you, so you have all your dates and what we're going to be working on. And so this is an opportunity to just, we're at the preliminary stages of putting things together, and so we want to make sure we understand from the board what the directions are. So the first thing we're going to go through is what are those drivers, okay? So Samantha did a nice job of identifying some things. We reviewed what are those things that are really going to be top of mind. What's our number one asset? What's our number one asset?
Students.
Thank you. Good. Staff. So staff are important. Well, staff expect increases. We expect to be competitive. We expect to keep our folks. And with that, we have to honor our contracts and show their value to us. So you anticipate that's 60% of our operating budget is our staff and those increases in salaries. The salaries towards the staff, yes. So that obviously is important to morale and in our staff retention. So salaries is a driver. Also is benefits, one, health benefits. And we won't know really until, I think we pushed last year, I think March, but we hit the top of the band last year and ended up being in at 12%, correct? Just 11.4%. So we anticipate we're going to be at the top of the band. We don't know what that band is. Because what they do is they take all the districts, and so those districts that have healthy staff, I guess it's called that, but the word isn't coming to me. The medical loss ratio helps those who have not as healthy staff. So bands don't always stay the same because it's looked at, and then they create the band, and so the band can be as low as 0 to 5, and it can be as high as 0 to 12 or 14. It depends on where we all land. So we won't know that. We're anticipating. So Samantha's always checking with her colleagues around where are people budgeting. We're always pushing Anthem and so forth around the MEA Benefits Trust. Where are we? Where should we anticipate? What should we do? It's better for us to budget here and have to reduce it than to budget here and have to go up. Okay, so we haven't made that decision yet. We're going to watch to see what the pattern seems to be in our region around benefits costs. But benefits are 20% of the operating budget, those increases. So I won't read that to you, but you can see that. So you can see 60% salaries, 20% health is going to be a big portion of our budget. The next items are other things that you've heard about, and one is the school resource officer. So as we talk about whether, and I talked to the chief again last week for Sabatis, is there opportunity for, they're not up to staff yet, they're not fully hired, and he said probably maybe January, February he'll know more. Would he be able to provide the resource officer again, and how much would that be? Right, last 2 years we've been around 50,000, 55,000 of the 70,000 that we budget. So that would be up for discussion. If Sabatis says they cannot provide the school resource officer, you've already heard that we'd have to increase our budget. So we budget at 70,000. We'd probably have to be close between at least 120,000, 130,000, because the officer would be with us full time, July 1 to the end of to June 30th. They're an officer with us. So we have to have discussion on that. Technology. So we talked to NJ, our tech director, and we need to look at iPads and replacing those for pre-K 1, pre-K, K, and 1. And so we have to make some decisions on that. What is the lease payment? She's been doing research on that. You'll get more information. Also, when we used our ARP funds, our SRRF, not SRF, the other one, funds that we got for COVID, we paid off some things. Like we bought Freckle. We got a contract, and we purchased that contract. Well, that contract's coming to an end. So we're going to have to put money in there for software. And there's going to be discussion on what's the best software, what's the software that meets our demands, what's the most cost-effective way to offer interventions using technology. So there'll be conversations about that. But there'll need to be a discussion on what's going to go in for the budget. The copier lease, and you can explain that. Samantha.
Yeah, so we had our new fleet of copiers installed in July of this year. So we were able to put a down payment on those copiers, which reduced our lease payment for, the next 5-year cycle. Our lease payment is lower than our previous lease payment, but we had paid off the copiers and we're running on kind of like their extended life before we replace them. So while it's a lower payment and we got a good deal and reduced the number of copiers that we have in our schools as compared to our previous agreement, it does increase the budget because that marker was removed when we were making reductions and cuts because we didn't have a lease payment. We just had the maintenance contract for the last 2 fiscal years.
The next set of anticipated increases is professional development. This year we reduced professional development. So, when you have a new superintendent coming in, I have not attended the superintendent's stuff. I did not go to the conference. I will not be going to the convocation. I will not be going to the end of the year. The new superintendent is probably going to expect to be able to go to professional development. But also our principals, our teachers, everything's been very scrutinized on what you can and cannot go to, based on our funding, based on just what's the return on investment on that professional development. So we reduced it way down. People aren't doing professional development as they have done in the past. Building maintenance, we need to review those needs again. What are the needs? We need to review those, prioritize what we need, where we want to put our funding for building maintenance. So those will be anticipated increases, and I'm going to get into more about what we're proposing around possibly a bond for Libby Tozier to address some of those maintenance needs. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And then the main paid family medical leave, which is a new law. And Samantha, I'll turn that one to you, because that's going into place.
So this law was enacted, but the way that the law is written is that it's only applicable, or our contributions and employee contributions are only applicable to collective bargaining agreements on a staggered timeline. So October 25th, I want to say, 2023 is when the law was.
Sorry.
Was it important, Robbie?
No.
If a collective bargaining agreement was in effect or has been bargained since that law was in place, then the employees are eligible for the deduction. So every time that we negotiate a contract, another group of our employees become eligible for those contributions. And then the other piece of the law is that it is a requirement that there's at least a split of 50-50 between the employer and the employee if you have more than 15 employees. 50. If you have more than 50 employees, then you're required to contribute on their behalf at least 50-50. So every year, every fiscal year, not only will we be contributing for more employees that we have, but we'll also likely see an increase in the percentage that they're taxed on. So right now it's 1%. It will likely go up to 1.1 and then 1.2. We'll have to wait and see. I believe the statute's written right now that it cannot increase more than 0.1% per annum, but that could be changed in legislation as well.
So any questions on kind of the drivers that we've identified? We're getting to that next. Oh, you mean
So,
questions?
If
Yeah.
I may, just remember that this is preliminary. This
Yeah.
is what we anticipate. So we are at such a fledgling process in assembling the budget that if your question's like, how much? I don't know.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we'll throw one out.
Where shall I start? How about technology?
Sure.
My big question is why technology for pre-K to 1? I'm wondering around, like, what do our classroom teachers think about the use of iPads? Are they, like, I understand why they were used when we were remote and hybrid, and I understand the use for snow days, but I don't understand the use in the day-to-day, particularly with pre-K, K, and how they learn. So
All right,
that's
so you're coming to slide, it's coming up.
Okay.
We have a slide
Okay.
that we're going to
Okay.
capture all that.
We can
So
wait.
Sam's going to capture that type of question so that when NJ comes for her department with our workshop, which would be Cost Center 5, Cost Center 5, we'll have that information. So
Okay.
this is good things that you're asking so that we can prepare what you need for data or you have questions. So we can, our next thing was to do your goals.
Okay.
And then get into what do you need for data and input. Like I added, if you go to that slide, I added what Scott said last time, list of assets for possible resale. That went on there. We've talked about high school course enrollment. So I was kind of giving examples of what I kind of heard, but that's where I think we can grab some of the things I think you've written down.
Okay,
Does
so
that
let's
make
wait.
sense?
Yep.
Okay.
And just to piggyback on that a little bit, in the CAI committee, we had kind of talked about some of the opportunity of what these programs kind of cost, these technology components, as well as some of the apps and things, right? Like we were like, what are people using? Does it make sense to pay $50,000? And I'm totally making up that number, but does it make sense to pay $50,000 for Freckle when one classroom uses it, or does all the
Right.
classrooms use it and it is a beneficial tool? Because a lot of times you kind of add things in as different opportunities come up, and then maybe we're not using those because they were added 5 years ago and they're not. So we were talking about that in our committee at the last meeting that we had, and we're adding those kind of things to that agenda. So
That's a great point. Great point. Thank you. So, you want to do board goals?
Yeah, we can move on to our board goals for the budget this year, fiscal year 26, rather. I do have what we had for last year. If you wanted to have me go over it super quickly, or if you just want to start fresh and go, hey, let's work to do this, let's work to do that as part of our budget goals. Anybody want me to read them from last year? Sure. I got one. Okay. We had special education resources and staffing, adding grant positions to local budget, keeping programming that students need, reducing unnecessary programming, being fiscally responsible. We had included interventions, and that was one goal that we did not really change or do anything for. And then we had looking at our Oak Hill High School course numbers and sizes. So we did pretty much hit on all of those goals except for the interventions. I mean, I don't have statistics or anything or exactly everything or how each one was met. But they seemed to be attainable, and we were able to be successful in reaching most of the majority of them. So what do you think for this year? what would be sorry.
Samantha's going to capture them up here, and then Nicole's going to ask us our consensus around the items. So this is kind of a brainstorm. These are your thoughts.
Yeah,
Put
this
'em
is
up
a brainstorming open floor, but go ahead, Christy.
Smaller class sizes pre-K 4. An investment in evidence-based curriculum pre-K 12. I think continuing to expand and sustain our special ed positions, behavioral interventionists, and balance the use of technology.
Would you mind sharing that with Sam? She's trying to keep up. Like, I don't know if you want to walk it over to her or just repeat it.
Special ed. Oh, investment in evidence-based curriculum. Maintain special ed ratios. Behavioral interventionists, and then a balance between technology and other educational tools.
All right, does anybody have anything different to add? There's some good ones. Anything in particular that you want to have included, added, excluded? Go ahead, Robbie.
Yeah, it's just hard to sit up here and tell us, say what we want. We want a lot, but without knowing the cost of all the drivers and what kind of hole we have to fill, it's kind of hard to say that we want this, we want that. I mean, as far as the maintenance piece goes, we're definitely going to have to do something if we decide to close Sabatis with Libby Tozier. There's air handling issues there. So the maintenance piece, like Katie said, we're going to have to probably put some stuff out to bond, or maybe go with a lease purchase agreement with Siemens like we have in the past, investigate that. And those are all drivers to the budget, no matter what. And I mean, how many, I guess, contract-wise for 25, 26, are we going to have any contracts coming up for that school year? Or the only one we have left is the administration one this year. And then the others will know what increases are. I mean, it may change benefit choices or whatever, but we will have a pretty good idea what that number is. The insurance piece, as far as, we can estimate the high number of 11.5%, 12%. The maintenance piece, we're definitely going to have to decide what we're going to do to Libby Tozier, what we have to do to Terry Ricker and the middle school and the high school. We're pretty much all set there as far as regular maintenance goes, and yearly checks that we have to do and all that. So I guess my biggest driver would be maintenance, to come up with what we're going to have to do at Libby Tozier. And I know we're going to be saving money by closing Sabatis, if we can get down that road and Sabatis agrees to close the school, and that's the road that we go down. So that number would be a driver for me to know that I have that number there to eat up some of those increases that we know are going to happen. But I think investment in maintenance and of buildings is a big driver. Yeah.
And just, if I may, Robbie mentioned the insurance from last year, and potentially putting in a marker of 11 or 12%. I just want you to know how historic that increase in insurance was. The Benefits Trust was formed in 2013, right? That was the first double-digit increase since 2013 to the top of the band, and we were at the top of it. So that's a real wild card. I mean,
I
I'm
think
not
the highest
sure.
I had ever seen is 9.
Yeah.
Maybe 9.5 tops.
Yeah, when we looked at the historical, RSU 4 rate increase compared to the band went up to 8.9 in certain years. But that was a substantial increase.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what we should expect. I'm not sure if we're still going to see like some COVID fallout from those medical increases. I'm not sure if that's going to level out at some point, if that's going to be this year. My gut tells me it's not, so my gut tells me we're going to go in high, like Katie said, and hope that this year we can cut rather than add to, like we did last year, because 10 was sort of like the historic percentage that you put in to be in a safe zone, to make sure that your bases were covered if your medical loss ratio was not good comparable. And that just didn't cut the mustard this year. So I think we need to make sure that we, are hedging our bets and going in high, and then we can reduce when we find out that value later in the budget season.
Go ahead.
I know our district has done a lot with math coaches and reading coaches. I'd like to see us have an instructional coach rather than a specified math or reading, so that they can be helpful to all teachers, not just math and reading. I think that would be beneficial as well. We're looking at instructional strategies, so I think anybody could benefit from that.
Anybody else? All right. Do we want to go through and see if we have a consensus? Do you want to go one by each? If there's any you don't like, we can just do one by each, or we can go. They all seem to be pretty reasonable, and just keep. Sure. Is there any that you don't want, that you don't agree with, that you don't like, that cause you concern? All right, let's weed them out instead of going through them individually. Go ahead, Laura.
So with I guess like this being the first kind of like, these are items and they're there and kind of everyone can maybe digest them. I think it's hard without numbers. I think it's going to be a super tough budget considering the last election and what voters can afford. And I am back. I'll start the conversation out with that this year. It's going to be really tough for any increase. I think the last couple of years I've been attending the meetings and on the board, it's been challenging to go 4 cycles both years. And with, I just think it's going to be a hard sell to get public to support it. And being a person that doesn't normally raise their hand in those budget meetings, I don't think I'm the one that makes hundreds of other people decide they can't afford it. I think that they can't afford it. And so I think also the comment of sitting here and saying, that you have to raise your hand or you have to support things. Normally I just tell people to contact the superintendent. If they have questions on the budget, there's a page, you can go put your comments, you can do all these things. And so I think, again, I don't think that me personally sitting there and not raising their hand for some support of things makes hundreds, if not thousands of people vote no, but maybe I'm wrong on that. So I think it's good to have things up there, and then I think we can think about it and people can add more as they have some maybe ideas and can digest that information.
Yeah, I think we can, have it being a living, breathing list.
I also I like our last committee discussion in the CAI committee and technology, where we kind of started to go down a budget conversation a little bit, keeping needs and things in check. So instead of, my kind of suggestion is, instead of creating another budget committee, we had kind of talked about that, is maybe having a meeting within that subcommittee of CAI, policy and personnel, and finance and facilities, and maybe those committees can look at that budget section of their pieces and make some recommendations to the board. So then we're not all trying to go through the entire budget, the entire everything. And those subcommittees could maybe add half an hour to their meetings or dedicate one meeting just to a budget conversation, and then present those back.
Go ahead, Doug.
I know being on the Facilities and Finance Committee, we're kind of tasked with a really monumental task right now as far as the SPS and the Libby Tozier closure, as far as doing that and scheduling it and trying to plan that out. That's probably going to extend those meetings times as it is. I think that trying to expect Facilities and Finance to add more time to those subcommittee meetings to meet to try to figure out the budget for the facilities and stuff, it's going to be kind of a challenge, to be honest. I mean, I'm trying to just be realistic with what's on the plate. Honestly, I think that just the SPS and Libby Tozier, if we're going to even have a remote chance to do it in a feasible way at all, should really be our number one priority, and it may even encompass most of. From what I know about goal setting and daily trying to plan things for your day, if not for your life, you should have one major goal, 3 medium goals, and maybe 5 minor goals. And I think what we're trying to put too many major goals on this plate. I think the biggest goal that we should all be focusing on is SPS and Libby Tozier, because that will trickle down to the budget and it's going to affect it. But if we do it well, we could actually get the budget to be less impacted as we move forward into the future years. But if we just treat it like an afterthought that only a subcommittee is going to be responsible for, we're not going to do it well. And then it's going to become a huge hassle. And no matter how well we plan a budget or how microscopic we try to manage that budget going forward for the next 5 years, it's not going to work out well with the buildings the way they are and with that whole decision being done if it's not purely and solely focused on for this year. I think this is the year to really have the whole board be involved in that, not just the Finance and Facilities Committee. So I guess that's my piece on that.
Laura, did I capture what your goal was?
I just need a minute.
Okay.
I'm thinking of our community. We know that they have questions as well. Is there any way that we could have, I know we have a board goal. How about a community goal page that maybe we could put out there for community ideas that possibly to get them involved in that may put us back together? Because I feel like there's kind of like that disconnect. We're all here doing what we want for the community, what's best for our children. So maybe hearing them as well and putting them as part of it may bring some of that, may ease some of that when it comes time to the budget.
Go ahead, Robbie.
Yeah, I believe there's definitely, Diane, a them and us scenario. You know, we sit here day in and day out, look at all the financials, look at everything, and the community doesn't. So I guess there is a them and us scenario that we can try to, overcome. But getting back to our list, smaller pre-K through 4 class sizes, if you're only talking adding 1 teacher to each one of those classes, you're talking 5 teachers at about $100,000 apiece between the salary and benefits. You're talking a $500,000 hole right there. So I guess I don't want us closing Sabatis Primary and adding in a pile of things that eat all that up. And we don't get any benefit from it because everybody thinks we're just, okay, we saved $600,000 closing Sabatis, and then we added all this stuff to it. So, and I don't believe the status quo, not being able to increase the budget isn't really realistic either, because you got salary increases, benefit increases, insurance increases, maintenance increases, fuel increases, electricity increases. Those all are drivers to the budget. So when it comes down to a school budget, we saw it here tonight, 60% staff, 20% benefits. So without losing staff, which means you lose paying for benefits, a zero increase in the budget isn't realistic. And I get the community's driver for it. They want to pay less. Nobody wants to pay more. But my point being is, we can go out and we can tell them what the drivers are. We can, let them know we got salary increases because we want to be competitive. But to add 5 staff members so you can bring a class down from 20 to 16, I don't think that that's really going to be doable. We're going to be coming back, adding that in. We're going to be coming back and cutting it out. Just what happened in the last 2 cycles. And the perception is, Diane, you're absolutely right. Us and them, we sit here day to day and go over the budget, look at the numbers and see the drivers, see the increase, and the public just wants to pay less. Well, without cutting staff and benefits, that's just not realistic. And I don't know how we impart that to the public, but they want to pay less.
Well, I like the community page idea. I think that's kind of like the Google questions, FAQs, and I feel like they do use that. I think they
do. They definitely use it.
I think
they use
feel
it.
more comfortable doing so when it's
Yeah.
anonymous.
Can I say something regarding the smaller class sizes? Maybe one of our goals should be about looking at all of our classes and seeing where there is an abundance of students and where we need, and maybe there might have to be teachers that move down or move up, but looking to see where we can make it better for all of our students.
So, oh, go ahead.
It was to maintain our smaller. It wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily to make the class sizes smaller.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
That's different.
So it's
Sorry.
maintaining
So
that.
kind of studying that
Yeah.
and seeing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
So in all honesty, I mean, obviously I think that all of these things are important, right? And our drivers are going to be part of the discussion. But I think they do fall into what Laura was saying. And instead of having it be budget goals or goals to come up with a budget, we should put these to those committees. So, not necessarily for the purpose of a budget, but make sure that you're adding these ideas into those committees and you're considering those when going through, what you're doing for curriculum, what you're doing for personnel and policy. Like, personnel policy should be saying, like, how do we keep our special ed teachers or all of our teachers? Right? How do we reduce attrition or reduce the people looking elsewhere? And then instruction, the technology. I mean, I think you guys could put that into your normal committees. And then I think you're right, though. It's going to all come out in the end, right? You have to see what the numbers are. I think the overall goal is we want a budget that the public will support, that we support, but that also supports our students and staff appropriately, right? And that's a very subjective goal. And I think all of these pieces together get us to that end result. I think we'll have more of idea when we get our presentations. At least I'm looking forward to that. The presentations from each of the cost centers. I think that would be helpful that you talked about, Katie. Is there anything on there that we want to just strike out? Like, let's go with that. Like, these are our goals. Whether we meet them all or not is not, I don't think, a performance rating. This is what we want to strive for. Is there anything you want to get rid of? Anything that you're completely against? Okay, so
Or is there anything I didn't capture correctly?
Oh, okay, good point. Is there anything Sam didn't capture correctly? Okay, that's what we'll keep for now. It's a living, breathing document. We'll come back as things evolve and revisit if we need to. What's next in our presentation here? Board data requests and input to inform superintendent's proposed budget. So any other things you want to be considered for that, microscopic view or more information, or go ahead, Christy, you're
The
first.
list again.
Okay, you like lists.
So, yep. The return on investment for the SRO position. So what are we seeing? Are we seeing an impact in student behavior by having an SRO? What kinds of things what's the benefit? What's the return on the investment? Another is the usage of the copiers. How many are there? How are they being used? With the phone system investment, can tech move if the buildings close? So if we invest in a new phone system for Sabattis Primary and then we're closing Sabattis Primary, can we move that infrastructure to a different school? And finally, what are the priorities for staff PD and what are the direct impacts on students? Is there a mechanism that our building admin are using to determine that? Can that be shared with us? Yep. What are the priorities for staff PD and what are the direct impacts on students?
All right, thanks, Christy. Anybody else? Yeah, I'd like to see the numbers for technology use, especially for pre-K and probably K through 1. And maybe, the younger grades, even for remote learning for snow days, they get packets. And I'm not sitting with my kindergartner in front of an iPad for... I'm not. Well, unless it's a dance music or song or something. So yeah, the technology usage. More focused on the younger grades. I think it's very important and helpful for the older grades, especially for the snow days or, when it's a useful activity. But definitely, if the contract's coming up. I guess our numbers again just keep coming with the class sizes and enrollments.
Yes, this high school one is already there. I think to that tech, software, hardware usage data, it would be nice to hear some data points from the classroom teachers in terms of that as well. Does pre-K feel like they need iPads? Is it something that they've always had so they kind of feel forced that they have to use them without, in a way that is appropriate? I'm not asking for the pre-K teachers to come and give us a presentation, but just to have a clearer understanding. And maybe that comes from CAI. But yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, my middle schools are upset that they don't have IXL anymore. So,
I was thinking too, instructional materials, how many different items are there? Like, is it, a subscription for K through 12, or how many different, where we get our instructional items for, and how many, how different they are? Or if there's subscriptions or contracts, or
You mean like supplies or books and periodicals?
so like books and periodicals.
Okay.
Like, do we use this company for K through 2 because they gear towards the younger age, or I don't know what's out there. So for our sources of
Do you
instructional
want me to put like
materials.
information on vendors for
Yeah.
instructional materials?
Yeah, that'd be good. I mean, how many different vendors are we using? Can we consolidate? Should we close that gap a little bit from having so many different out there? Go ahead, Robbie.
Yeah,
and then-
Sam, I think it would also be useful to know that if we're gonna discontinue technology for the lower grades, what we're gonna have to buy for textbooks or workbooks to support that, that learning material. I guess the learning material that we'd have to buy. I mean, I'm not saying, we might need new textbooks, we might need new workbooks, we might need, you know what I mean? More paper and, stuff like that. And the other thing, I know you and I had talked about the maintenance contract, going over those, and I know it's been a while since they've been out to bid. I think it's been at least 4 or 5 years since they went out, so maybe we can look, ask to look at those again. Yeah, and bring that up. Maybe we don't go with the comprehensive program we have that covers all of our equipment and material, but maybe we go with just certain things. Like, I don't know how much you'd have to really cover the new boiler at Libby Tozier, but you would definitely have to cover, the same thing with Oak Hill, because we've switched over to gas and, like that. So that might be something where we might be able to save some dollars.
Okay, Diane.
I know that our schools will be, SPS will be, can put back into the other schools. So is there a way that we can cut that library line of books to purchase? Because now you're going to be consolidating all those books. We won't need all.
Yeah. So as best you can, I know this is difficult, try to keep the closure and like this request separate, because there's a very thorough cost analysis that you have to do for the state when you go through a school closure, and it requires that you review every single expenditure line for the building that you anticipate closing.
All right. And another thing I was going to say is we said return on investment for SRO position. What about the return of investment on PBIS? Because I know as a teacher, I did a lot of the stuff that the PBIS coaches do. So what is it that could we benefit from? Is there any benefit from not having one or having one? What is it? What do teachers want? I want to know.
So when you said having one or not having one, are you referring to the coach or are you referring to the program?
I'm just referring to the program, not a specific coach.
Okay, go ahead, Doug.
I guess I brought up the school closure thing because we're going to be leaning on the same staff to do the incredibly detailed cost analysis of closing the school that's going to be responsible for doing all of these bullet cost analysis. So I guess I was trying to trump that with the importance of the closing of the schools. I would love to have to go through all of this, but I feel like we only have so many office staff that can go through and do the cost analysis stuff. And I guess I'm just trying to really advocate that closing the schools is going to be a big deal, and it's going to have a lot of bullets if we went through and do that, that the finance people might be overwhelmed with the bullets of all of this stuff compared to the bullets of all of the school closing. I guess. I mean, I feel like I guess am I all alone with understanding the importance of the school closing at all?
Well, I'm confused because I thought we tasked the superintendent with that and not the facilities finance committee.
with the school closing. I don't know. I feel like I'm not hearing enough talk
Yeah,
about
that-
it in
that's-
general. I
that's
guess I
what
don't.
my understanding was. But
I guess I'm just concerned that
That's coming up in part 3 of this presentation.
Part 3, yeah. Well, I guess I'm just concerned with all the budget stuff, though. But all this budget stuff, we just lump it on, and then we're going to get into the facility stuff, but then that's lumped on too, and then nothing gets done as well as it could be.
So I'm
with all that.
I'm gonna let Matt go ahead, Matt, and then I'm gonna say something about that.
Doug, to your point, the consolidation committee, it's going to be, or it is already a separate committee from the facilities and finance committee. So I believe it's an hour and a half for the consolidation or the closing committee.
Yeah, I tried to bump things around so that, so last meeting we put out a calendar of what we were doing for the budget, right? So, and then we put out what the committee work is going to do, which I'm trying to use your Wednesdays to do that. So there's stuff that's going to come up that's going to bump the Finance and Facility Committee. It's going to bump the CAI Committee. So some of those committees aren't going to meet until late January now, right? So I think, though, what maybe Nicole missed, it's a great plan as you move forward. That part of the committee work could be how are we doing with the items we're supporting in the budget. Is it going to inform probably this budget development? Probably not as much, but I think the work you've started and the conversations you started are very important. I think what this, correct me if I'm wrong, this is informing us of what the items that you're looking at. So as we work with our departments and we work with our administrators, they're hearing this. They know what their lens is as they work on with their staff around areas that we need to talk about, which a lot of these things we've already started discussing because we anticipate what you might say. Like, for example, the Siemens maintenance contract stuff, looking at that, looking at programs. I know Shelley's been doing work with the different schools about what is the curriculum we're using, what is, how is that working, what's the return on investment. So those things are going on. So we will definitely come back. We can't, time, we have to monitor our time. And so I appreciate you advocating to recognize that we have a lot on our plates, and we appreciate that. But we're going to do everything we can to listen to you, listen to your feedback as we put it together. And then when we get into workshop and you're really diving deep into your lines and talking those questions, great.
Right, so I think we all understand and see the significance with the closure. Katie and I have been talking about this a lot lately, and we kind of just want to make sure we're still realistic here. This has to go to public vote. If it doesn't pass, we do not want to start fresh in April. So although we would have a recommendation that's going to be coming to us from this committee, and who knows, the committee can say close Sabattis and Libby Tozier, or keep them open, and we don't care about your budget, like figure it out, right? Keep the cost down, but figure it out. We don't know what's going to come out of that committee. But if it does go to vote to close that, and it doesn't pass, we still have to proceed, right? Our time must go on. So Sam is going to, be working both parallel, right? A parallel path right now. So unfortunately, I would love to not have to do that as well, but we don't see any other way with the severity of what we're facing here. Go ahead, Robbie, and then we'll move on to the Sabattis program.
I know for a fact that if it doesn't pass, Sabattis is going to have to pick up some of the costs to keep it open.
It would be all 3 schools. The way,
right?
Yeah.
That was going to be my next question, right? Because it's going to be all.
The way that the process outlines it is that if the school receives 100% of the students from each municipality, which right now, the way that it's organized, because it's first grade and second grade at Sabattis Primary, all all Litchfield, Sabattis, and Wells students that are in first and second grade go there. The vote will go to all 3 towns.
All 3 towns.
And the incumbent cost, if it fails, goes to all 3 towns with the split.
Right. Okay, with the same.
Yes, with our local split.
Right, with the local split.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the Sabatis primary potential closure discussion, and it does really play a huge role, right? It's hard to do this without talking about that, but understanding Sam needs to still keep it separate because there's two different things going on. So let's get into this and then see what else we have to talk about.
Okay. So as we're learning, as we're working with the DOE, as we're talking this through with our attorneys and so forth around how does this get done in a way that also impacts budget and is timely. And Nicole and I have talked about it. The board may say, we don't want to do that this year. We want to delay it. That's your prerogative. You might say, or you're going to say, yes, keep moving forward. So everything can be discussed and shifted and checked and adjusted. So,
And sorry, Katie,
Yeah,
let
go
me
ahead.
just interject.
Yeah, no,
and
yeah.
we could also say, scrap the committee. We need a decision. We're just going to close it. That's our right. So we can do that too. We're trying to do this, in a different manner, but these dates are a little tight. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, so you see, and Sam's done a great job with this PowerPoint to try to lay out our thinking, which is you have the budget at the beginning, right? So the budget, we know November, we're doing our discussion. Thank you for the conversation tonight to help get us focused on how we're putting our budget together. In December and January is when we're working with staff, departments, administrators to start to draft the proposed budget. In February is when we start to kick off working. Late February going into March is when we have our calendar with our different dates for workshops and regular meetings. And the goal right now is to approve a school budget on April 16th, and then we go to our public hearing, and then we have a referendum vote. So when I was first talking to you, I said, well, we'll go June 10th for the closing of SPS. Well, okay, after that meeting and driving home and coming back in the next day, I think, I was like, okay, well, that isn't going to work, right? It's not going to work. So we had to look again, okay, we need to have the community say yes or no to closing SPS before the board approves the budget. Okay, so so all that wonderful. We're gonna have this committee. We're gonna do all this work. Well, now we've crunched it and we've compacted. So I've changed dates. Even I talked to Nicole today. I said dates have changed again, and they're gonna. If you all agree to what we're proposing here, I'll send you out new dates, new information. So you see SPS closure. In November. We're updating you right now on the process and timeline, which will be the next slide. Sam is already working on the cost analysis, and we have to have you in December and January, which you'll see dates. So I'll do SPS closure coming up on dates, and then we have to have the same thing, which is a public hearing, and then we go to referendum. So we've tried to do a same timeline back up, and to have it done before the public hearing. Now, what Sam and I have talked about is we're going to be, let's go to the next slide. I'll come back to the bond. So the thought right now is the consolidation committee would meet 3 times. So we've added a date. December 11th would be the kickoff where we would go over the survey, what people had for questions, what they had for concerns and comments. I'm already going to start answering questions, right? Like you said, superintendent, I'm going to do we're doing a lot of the front loading to get prepared, right? So December 11th is going to be, there are people who wanted to be on the committee. The committee is probably going to be 20 people at this point, because we want to include everyone that has signed up at this, and then we've closed it. Nicole and I talked about it's closed, and tomorrow we'll let the people know that have asked. And so the 11th is only an hour and 15 minutes, right? So that's kind of a kickoff. Here's where we are. And I want to inform that committee, here's all the work we're doing behind the scenes. Are we missing anything? Here's all the work. the transportation director, she has already been working on busing. Mark is already working on facilities stuff that we've already discussed. NJ's already thinking, what do we have to have for technology around phones, internet, those type of things. So people, administrators, they're hearing how's this going to work with staffing. We're talking about staffing. So there's a lot going on right now, okay? Then on the 18th would be a meeting with no other meetings. And so I picture that going at least 2 hours, right? Starting at 5:30 and probably going 2 hours, maybe more. And having departments present to that committee. What is the transportation impact? What is the facilities impact? Because a couple of questions I've seen is, well, Sabattis Primary and Libby Tozier, isn't Libby Tozier in worse condition than Sabattis Primary? So there are things we want to present to that committee and for the public to hear and have on our website is what are the needs? So I pictured the 18th really, we've done a lot of legwork. I'm putting a lot of pressure on staff by December 11th to have a lot of preliminary work done so that, and they're hearing for the first time the 18th, doing some kind of presentations to the committee so there can be dialogue, discussion. Here's questions, here's where we're standing. Then on the 8th would be kind of a wrap around where does people feel like we can move forward with the board taking a vote? Is there enough support? The committee might decide on the 18th, we'd like you to do a straw poll. Can you put out to the community, through the towns, through a straw vote? Would they vote yes right now based on what they know? So there's lots of things we can be doing, but it's 3 meetings because we have to have a vote by the board on January 15th. And you can see that's an additional meeting. That's a special meeting for this vote. You will see also we have to have the 2/3 majority of the full board or voting power. So if 2 of you are missing, the majority still has to be the 2/3. Okay, has to be a supermajority, whether you're present or not. Okay, and that's on the 15th. Once you say yes, like Nicole said, you could say, don't bother doing the 3 meetings. We want to vote to close it and get the wheels in motion, right? Because wheels in motion is we have to get our cost analysis. I have to do a report to go to the commissioner as informal, like are we on the right path? Once you vote to close, you'll see there's another next vote is on January 29th that you have to vote to submit our cost analysis and report to the DOE. We're making a formal, here's our submission. Then you'll see we have from that submission, we have 10 days for all 3 communities to review the cost analysis, and they can make arguments. They can come back and challenge what the cost data is. They have 10 days to do that. Then on the 26th, the board has to call the election for the election and sign your warrants like you normally do, which you've done. And then there's a public hearing on the 19th. And we notice, there's side by side is budget going on. So we're going to have a public hearing probably just on this, maybe prior to the regular meeting. And then we would have our public hearing on March 19th. And then we would have on April 8th a referendum vote.
Katie, one.
Yeah.
Did we, do you have the survey results yet?
Yes, I do.
And without getting into a lot of detail, because we'll get to the discussion, is there leaning a certain way? Like,
I think
in favor
there are
of or
questions.
against?
Some definitely say this makes a lot of sense. Some want, the sooner we know. So for planning purposes, we had 13 staff responding. We've had 17 families, I should say families.
Okay.
I mean, we did have a community member also. Those will be reviewed. I'm having Vicki Hines, our data person, is putting stuff together for us.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Doug.
All this brings the point that I've made twice now, but I feel like we should have led with this before we went into the budget. We should have, personally, my vote would have been to do the SPS closure timeline and everything info before we get into the budget. Because I really think that we're trying to figure out how we're rearranging our house, and the budget's more like how we're going to decorate it. And we're really don't even know what our house is going to look like in the next year or so. And this timeline is so concise that in order to get voter buy-in is going to be almost impossible, where we're setting ourselves up for quite a big failure. So we really should just put into the budget what it's going to cost to build Libby Tozier up to be able to house all the students permanently there, is what I can't help but I feel like we should be trying to even a little bit of time discussing this as a board and taking it seriously. I think is a big deal. You know, I'm not saying it's not taken seriously. I'm just thinking that this is a serious thing, and that's why I brought it up 3 times now. It's a big deal, and I just wish we were talking about how we're going to move forward, how we're going to get voter buy-in for what we're doing. I'm severely, having been involved in building my own home, that was stressful. This is a whole school, and we're trying to balance a budget concurrently with it. And everything's up in the air. I don't know how everybody isn't more stressed about trying to figure out this stuff, or wanting answers, or wanting to just come to conclusions sooner. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Yeah. Go ahead, Diane.
Is the public invited to any of these consolidation committee meetings? Is it possible to maybe have this at a larger place where people could actually be there? Like, make it like send something home and with kids at school that we're having this. We would like your input. Please come so you can hear what we're talking about, what we're doing.
Yeah, they're all public. But yeah, I mean, we can think about that.
And I was thinking, like, you know, there's a big PTA event coming up with the holiday, like even just some information for people to grab. I don't know they will, but I think that's a good idea. Like, there's the holiday concerts, right? Like those pre-K,
And the
first,
craft fair.
second. I mean, Miss Cafoza, right? She hosts some pretty big parties that have good turnouts, and I'm like, it always kind of surprised me that some information's not at those types of events where there's lots of people. As we keep encouraging families to come into the buildings for different events too, you know, anytime we can be of information, I think that would be helpful.
I think, Matt, you were first. Okay, Chrissy. Go ahead, Chrissy.
Okay. So we had a subcommittee that was going on last year. So talk to me a little bit about the different functions of the recommendation. So we did have a group of individuals that was representative of the communities. We had select board members. Their recommendation to us was to close SPS and Libby Tozier.
It was to close both.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the first
Central
step
office.
to get there.
So help me to unpack the replication of it all. Like you all know me. Like I am 100% like, let's get the community involved. Let's make sure we seek their feedback. Is there a difference? Because it feels like there's a lot of duplication in terms of what the charge is.
So I see the difference is getting more nitty gritty. Like they did a lot, and I know Matt, you're leaning in, so you might. And that we really analyzed and came to the conclusion both of them have a lot of issues, right? And we need to close both, but we cannot close both until we are committed to adding on to addition or building a new school. That's why we put in the applications, because Nicole and I talked. You could wait till you see where you are on the application to do anything. But people were like, no, probably can't wait for that. So when we talked out, I think at the committee level, it's like, well, we do two, but which one do we think? So I don't know, Matt, you really, I'm going to have a meaningful.
Yeah, we discussed, you know, which one we think, and the consensus was that Sabatis primary should be the first step in that process, and wait and see what happens in August of next year in terms of capital improvement grant.
So like I'm seeing questions on, is this being done because of transportation? Okay. So I see those consolidation committees really getting now in the nitty gritty. We didn't have Sheena do the bus routes. I'm having Sheena now do how much time are buses on the road now? If we close, how much time? What do the routes look like? Those type of things. So she's been working on that. Just started. It's preliminary, but she's been starting that. So I think people want to hear, okay, what is this going to be an impact on transportation? The other thing is I think people have to hear, okay, this consolidation committee said both are bad. Why didn't you choose Sabatis over Libby Tozier, right? So I think we can have a conversation about that. Well, this is why. Here are the things that have been fixed at Libby Tozier. Here are things that still need to be fixed at SPS. They both have needs.
But do you need? I'm just.
Right.
I'm
Do you need a committee to do it?
Do you need a committee to do that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so before, don't answer that.
I'm not
We'll
going to.
keep it rhetorical for the moment,
That's-
right?
That's where my brain's going. Like,
I hear you. I see you going there. Go ahead, Matt. Matt was first, and then Laura, then Doug.
I was just going back to what I was going to say earlier, is and kind of piggybacking on what Katie was saying. I think we need to have this in-depth dive and lay it out not only for the board but for the community and everyone in the community to see. The community is asking us to find something big to do, and I think this is kind of what we settled on to focus on as, can we do this? And it may come down in the end of this, before we even send it out to a vote, that we say the numbers don't add up, right? But we're hopeful that looking at on a microscopic level, that this will make that impact that everyone's looking for, budget-wise, community-wise, et cetera.
Go ahead, Laura.
I was just also curious if this has any impact or could have any impact in the next superintendent.
Well, everything would be pretty much completed. Right.
So we actually did talk about that, and I know, Doug, you have your hand up. What Katie and I were thinking was we're hoping that we would have a superintendent coming in and not being overwhelmed and bombarded with these age-old problems, and showing that, we're trying to get them in a little bit of a better situation. We also felt that with what happened and how you've brought up for the past 2 years, it was 4 rounds. I did have to ask Katie about the first year, because I'm like, was it 3 or 4? We want to avoid that, right? But in order to do that, we really need to work hard on the budget, and we think that this is one of the ways to do that. We want the superintendent to come in and hopefully, have a better feel from the community with a better supported budget. I mean, obviously, we're not going to get 100% of the voters to vote for it, but just try to get a better outlook for them when they come in, and hopefully have better outcomes for them.
So would a possible school closure and consolidation deter some potential superintendents from applying, or?
You mean if you don't do it?
Or if we do it, like,
Either,
will they,
yeah.
I
Is
don't
this a
know.
scary discussion to superintendents? I don't know.
Right, I think.
Completed before they get here, I don't see, if the closure and all that is completed before they get here, they're coming in to just to continue what's already been put in place.
I mean, we could add that to our interview questions.
Yeah, well, no, I was just asking.
go.
So, if this timeline and the referendum vote in April, and then everything would be laid out by June, July, because we have so many changes happening in August. You know what I mean? I was just asking a question.
No,
if
I
that
think
would
it's a
be
good point. We could add that to our interview
Point,
questions.
which it's a question we can ask, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the goal, it's some of the, if you do this by April 8th, you give an opportunity to have the staff prepare for the move and the families to prepare for the move. Because I did see a couple comments of, I hope that we're not going to wait till the last minute and that I don't know my teachers and stuff. So you're asking a question of, do you want a new superintendent coming in and don't have this superintendent do it and wait? and then the superintendent you're bringing in is going to do this work, or you have the superintendent take, leap from the spot. I mean, any superintendent knows they're coming into different things. Like you said, it's running of a school department.
All set, Laura?
I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Doug.
Hi. So there's a couple of things. First, committee. Do we need a committee for this? The point of having a second subcommittee being created was to come up with a plan on how to proceed forward with that. A lot of that has kind of been done already. The other part of that second subcommittee was to increase taxpayer buy-in. I think that the problem I'm noticing with subcommittees is that they get really, they're really hidden from a lot of people. The only people I think that really got bought into that subcommittee were the people that attended it or that were part of it. Personally, I think I'm starting to, looking at this and looking at the plans, looking at the timelines, looking at the importance, I think that the board itself should be much more involved going forward. This should be almost an agenda item each time going up on the board. We should be discussing, at least for a little bit, part of this so that it's online, so that it's part of the actual board conversations, so that the average person can go on YouTube or however we're doing the board, so that they can watch these videos and be aware of each step. Because I think a lot of the subcommittees' purpose and function is kind of diminished, not in a negative way, it just kind of is by the timeline and what we have here. And again, I mean, obviously, I think it's very important. I think that this whole thing is going to dictate some major direction for us moving forward. And we should be treating it as the monumental, important thing that it is in order to, if we treat it that way, I think the taxpayers will receive it that way because we're treating it that way, as opposed to like a lot of other stuff that happens in this bureaucratic environment where we go, that's important, and then we don't talk about it for like 3 more meetings, and then it comes up again, and you're like, oh, I thought that was super important. Oh, it was. That's why we planned it 3 meetings out instead of every single meeting. I think if it's planned for every single meeting, it shows that it's important and that it's something that needs to really be addressed constantly, every meeting, with that timeline being constantly brought up. So,
all right.
I haven't gone.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll be brief. So I kind of am thinking about what Christy's been saying and Doug's been saying. I'm not so sure this committee is really that necessary. We need to rush this through and get the school closed. And I say that because everything we've been looking at is increases. Where are your decreases? Because at the end of the day, you're not going to get this budget to pass. We're going to be 4 cycles, 5 cycles deep because you don't have the cuts. You know, you talk about salary increases. Nobody's going to freeze their salaries this year. Let's be real. Like, you need to come up with some cuts. This is the only cut that's really anybody's even talking about. It's a pretty massive cut. It's the only thing that's probably going to balance this even close to getting the budget passed and getting the taxpayer buy-in that you're looking for. So let's cut to the chase and just get rid of it.
Go ahead, Matt. And then we're going to take a straw poll here.
I was going to ask a question about the timeline. It was the after the 10-day, the 10-day waiting period. The next scheduled meeting wasn't until the 26th of February. Is there any way to shorten that gap in time? Oh, okay, never mind.
So we can shorten it by voting tonight. Right?
It's vacation, I guess.
The vacation week is right before, right?
So if the board determines that we do not need a consolidation committee, does that change the timeline, or is the timeline set because of all of the work that needs to happen?
Good question.
one proposal could be, instead of it being a consolidation committee meetings, it's the board's meetings, right? And the board does a workshop on the 11th to see what people are saying for questions, comments, and concerns. You have a workshop meeting on the 18th to hear what the transportation impacts are, and we can have them all filmed. We can have them all, on YouTube, and then coming out of the 18th, you might say we'll vote to close on January 8th, and then we'll move into the timeline. So we can, and then those people who want to be in the consolidation committee, I can say you're invited to be at the meetings. You're invited because you do have to have public. You know what I'm saying? Thank you. Public comment. Thank you. Public comment during those, so you could still do that. Matt has his hand up.
Go ahead. I'm looking up something about our advisory committees. Go ahead.
Last point, I promise. To Scott's point about just bypassing or foregoing the subcommittee, I'm okay with that. My concern is public buy-in, and I have questions that I wanted to dive into in terms of there's going to be cost that comes with this and what the offset is, because we're moving classrooms, equipment, all that kind of teachers, all that. So that's why I was thinking that the exploratory committee would be beneficial.
I think the public buy-in is going to come from the fact that you're reducing the increase to taxes. That's where the buy-in is going to come from. I'm not sure most people that are on that side of keeping the budget zero or next to nothing really care where it comes from.
Go ahead, Robbie.
Yeah, and I know Scott and I don't agree on a lot of things sometimes, but I kind of agree with him on this. For the simple fact is that the timeline is as crunched as it is, and we've already looked at this for a long time. I mean, at least 10 years we've looked at closing buildings, and we really haven't gotten any closer. And Sabatis Primary, we were going to close 5 years after the middle school was built in 2009, and here we are in 2024. So consequently, I understand the public buy-in piece, and I get it, but I think if we are going on these dates and allowing the community to come in and ask the questions, and they can see it on YouTube and they can watch it, I think our biggest driver to explain is that we don't need that building. We can get by with 4, not 5 buildings. So consequently, I think Scott's right. That's the biggest driver we have to cut the budget, is closing a building. Whether it's 5,000, but there are going to be costs incurred, because I know when we built the middle school, it's not like you can have the custodial staff move all that stuff, or when we closed Wales, you have to hire movers. People to come in and move your things, because one, the custodians don't have time to do it all because they're doing their regular summer work, and teachers don't move their own classrooms. They'll come in and box it up, but they don't physically move it to where it's got to go, and it's going to be a big move because you're closing a school and moving it to another one. So you are right. There are going to be costs incurred in that, and I'm not sure. I can't remember what that was, but it takes a while. I think it took us probably we took everything in Wales. We took every desk. We even took clocks off the walls, copiers. Everything got dispersed throughout the district. So we went from 6 schools down to 5. Closing Sabatis will move us from 5 down to 4, and I think we're one step closer to being where we need to be, but there are going to be some costs in that. So, but I think still the biggest driver is going to be is the public is going to have to understand that because of student population, we can get by with 4 schools, not 5.
Okay, go ahead, Doug, you had your hand up first, but if you have anything new to contribute, though,
Yeah,
only because I think Scott's
it is
only
new.
talked once.
To Matt's point, I agree. We've all been kind of holding out. I'm on the facilities committee, and I still don't really know the actual beginning steps for the costs that to even do the school closing. We've talked about what schools need to close. I just think that it would be great to actually start moving that bus forward to get it into what are the costs, that kind of stuff to focus on,
Go ahead, Scott. Then we're going to do a
I would
poll.
actually propose on December 11th, we just have a board meeting to discuss, and then on the 18th, we vote. That's going to move us up a whole entire month, because I think it's going to be important. We have all these numbers to discuss the budget and know what the impact is of this closure.
And I think it'll give staff more time that they're going to need to do the work that they need to do.
Right.
And are we keeping some form of the committee or the committee? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, we're just beating a dead horse. I think it's been discussed enough, but
as the chair of the facilities committee, I think that the facilities committee should still be helping as much to do the legwork that could be contributing to the decision that the board is ultimately going to make, kind of to help with all that stuff, gathering financials or planning out steps that might otherwise need the minutia that would be involved in that. I think that's definitely would be a helpful part of the facilities committee.
So it sounds like, though, that we need a different committee because they were charged with investigating the closure, and we could have them part of, the decisioning of those items. But I think we might need to dissolve that committee based on that charge that we gave them. Go ahead, Robbie.
Yeah, I guess I think you're right. Maybe we shouldn't call it a committee. Maybe we should call it an action group, because all those people that are really interested were interested enough to be on the committee, sitting out in the audience, firing questions at us and the superintendent of how we're going to do what we want to do is a great idea. So I don't think we should dissolve that group. I think we should have that group come in and sit and listen to the discussion and ask the questions that they would ask in that committee, so we could get a feel of, and then they could go out into the community and actually have input on what we discussed with their help.
So then we just have to assign them.
An advisory committee.
It is advisory, which is part of our policies, which I did pull up.
Sure.
Because I wanted to make sure we did it properly. So it says the scope and authority of any advisory committee shall be limited to that assigned to it by the board of directors. So we already gave them an assignment.
Right.
So now they can't
Sure.
stay, right? So we either have to dissolve and redo or assign a new assignment. If we're going to keep them, which I think it's okay to keep them involved. Go ahead, Katie. What do you want to say?
I'm trying to wrap my head around expectations right now. I don't have a problem reaching out to each person who said they want to be on the committee and asking them what were they hoping for and so forth, and so being part of it. If you, and I don't know if you want to take consensus if people.
I do.
Because I heard at one point the board should be doing the diving in and getting the information out, and then how we communicate that through different forums or different ways. So I don't mind those. It was 7 people and 3 staff members. I don't have a problem with writing them and saying the board had a meeting last night. This is where the new direction is. We want you involved. I'd love for you to share what your hopes were of being on the committee. You're still invited to the committee. I don't have a problem with that. I think it'd be hard to do an advisory because I wouldn't know how the advisory would interface with the board. So that's what I'm trying to process it. The 11th is a regular board meeting. So, I don't know if we're going to have everything ready for the 11th, because the goal was to hopefully have everything ready maybe for the 18th or the January 8th. So I mean,
Let's say, do we want to do a special one for the 18th?
right. If we can at least see where we are the 11th, we all have like a workshop before that, like we had planned 5 to 6:30, 6:15. Then on the 18th, you get all the information that we can then put out to the public. But yes, it's going to be a campaign. It's going to be a campaign to make sure everybody's in the loop and has information.
Go ahead, Doug.
I guess I feel like that subcommittee, the people that applied and were accepted, they could still be doing the same duties because it was just to help to exactly what Rob said, to help with determining the direction and how to proceed forward. They still can be involved in doing that, and they can still be advocates for the public or intermediaries between the public. It would be great to hear some of their suggestions on how to get more people involved in the process and all that stuff. I don't see why it would be any different, except that they would be in that audience instead of more candid. in
So
the
let's do a-
subcommittee audience. I don't.
Okay, go ahead, Laura.
One question. A few meetings ago or so, I was able to collect 100 signatures for a field hockey thing in less than 2 hours of my time. So is it something that, like, maybe if I stood in the drop-off line, that I could get a consensus from? Could I ask drop-off line people about would they support? Like, could I have 3 questions that I could
Like a
ask?
straw poll type
yeah.
thing.
Do we want to do that? Put that out and
I
then.
could do that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a board member when I leave the seat.
You would be reporting back to the board, though, what
You could put her in charge of doing that. Yeah, you could say the board gives Laura authority to be at the drop-offs to ask these 3 questions.
And I may
Or
not be able
one
to do
question.
the middle school because I would struggle with not also directing traffic. But
Seems like a lot of work. Why don't you just put out an email to
Yeah, we just put out a survey.
I really, well, so the other thing, just like public, I was looking at the YouTube channel and the last few public meetings regarding budget. On 9/11, only 220 people have viewed it, and those may not all be residents, right? And then public meeting, 311 people, and 5/15, there was 249 views. So I could probably do that. Honestly, have you been to the middle school at 7 o'clock?
No.
I could probably get that many in like 15 minutes, right?
I go
Like-
around that area. at 7 o'clock.
Yes.
So let's take a poll. Okay. Let's take a poll for if the board here would prefer that we come back together at a special meeting on December 18th to actually make a decision about closing SPS. Thumbs up. You agree with that? Thumbs down. You don't.
So, meeting on the 11th,
We-
workshop it all, and then
And then come back on the 18th to make a decision to close SPS. Just a straw poll. Just a.
My December is pretty booked.
So it looks like we're kind of like half and half almost. We could do a survey. We could
I
put
mean,
flyers out.
January 8th, I think if you shot for January 8th is a regular meeting, that could be the date that you vote to close it.
That's a week difference. That would put us March for the.
Because we have holiday, if,
Well,
if
2 weeks, right? Yeah.
yeah, we would have 2 meetings. We could put, I think we have to do a survey everywhere. Like,
Well, I was saying we could hang up flyers and put a QR code
yeah, 'cause
instead of just
we have to have
Facebook
citizens,
or.
all the voters have an
Mhm.
opportunity. Yeah,
We could put a flyer up at town hall, at Gowels, at
exactly.
gas stations.
Yep.
If they'll
Yep.
let us, obviously, have to ask for permission. So.
So
I
do you
just-
want me to harass people in their cars, or do you want to let me know? I mean, would you like me to ask people nicely if they, like 2 or 3 questions?
I think it would be really helpful, Laura.
Yeah.
I think it would be really helpful.
I
I think
can-
we can ask you to do that. I think.
You
should-
want that tomorrow?
I can help too. I go to 3 schools, so I can try to go.
I can't help. I don't go to any schools.
What
My
do you
kids
want to
take the
ask? Because everyone got an email that we were investigating. So what question do you want
That's
to
exactly
ask?
what I was just going to say. Like,
Yeah.
what are we going to have you ask? Like, if you were asked to vote to close Sabatas Primary School today, what would you do? Would it,
Was it
yes or no?
Yeah.
Then you just tally yes or no.
Yeah.
And then just tally that. Like, and I wouldn't do more than one question. I would literally
Yeah.
do just the one question.
You don't
Right.
have time, really.
My concern is that we're only sampling parents of students.
Right. Well, that's why I think
And
we should put up
grandparents
flyers
and
too.
caregivers and-
Guardians, caregivers.
And you know,
parents.
if you want to drive through that drop-off line sometime this week, you are welcome to, and I will get your result.
There's a lot of people in Sabatis line, too, our line.
Yeah, I mean, we can hang up a
I do
QR
have
code
a full-time
everywhere.
job and several other commitments.
Or-
We can get out a QR code.
And with, of course, or
Yeah.
visit rsu4.org
Yeah.
for finding the link if they don't have their phone on them or whatever.
I'll just go door.
Is there? When you put that question out, can you just add the reason behind it? Because if you're asking somebody who
Right.
doesn't know anything about this, do you support closing the school? Yes or no? I'm probably going to say no because I don't know anything about closing the school. That sounds like a really bad thing. But if you put it like the board has determined that we do not need the school and this will help reduce the tax burden, whatever, that might.
Yeah, we could do that.
Why
I
don't-
mean,
why doesn't
Laura
it,
probably
okay,
doesn't want
don't
to,
jump. All right, I know you're a doer. I know that. You're a go-getter. But I'm wheeling you in just a hair here. Let us get it all organized, ready. Nicole and I can work on it. Then maybe next week you do it. Like, just give us an overnight of.
don't even ask them. Pass it out at the drop-off line. Give
Yeah,
them the,
so I
pass it out at the craft
You know,
fair.
what
Pass
you
it out
wanna
at the
say,
concerts.
How we want to say it. Like you said, have some context in it.
Well, we need to get it out too, because just like Matt said, you need to get it out to everybody. It can't
That's
just
right.
be school people
Exactly.
because
Right.
Gotta
it
put it
has to go to a
everywhere.
public vote, meaning.
So we could either have flyers or we could have where they could pick it up in a stack at Gowell's, at
Then they could
the
drop
post
it off
office,
here.
the
We could
town
put it on
halls.
our mailbox. They could
Craft
drop
fair.
off. 'Cause some people are going to say, I don't have
Craft
QR
fair.
code.
Yep.
Craft fair.
So there's an app called Poll Anywhere that you
Mm-hmm.
can create a yes or no poll, and people can just snap the QR code on their mobile phone, and they can answer yes or no, and you can see in real time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So don't be asking anybody just yet, Laura.
I know, but
Stay
I
in your
also
car.
am not going to stand
Or-
out there in the snow. And when I have time to do things, I offer. But when I don't, it's like, yeah. So
We're gonna
Well, we'll have a QR code for you to pass out instead.
I'll ask.
Hopefully their snow won't fly in the next week.
Just rain. Okay.
Okay.
Do you need anything else for this from this presentation, Katie? Okay.
So, Katie, are you going to redo the timeline? Let us know when the meeting. I mean, we're coming on the 11th, the 18th, and the 8th.
You're coming the 11th and the 18th for sure, and you're definitely coming the 8th because it's a regular meeting.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And would you email that to us as soon as you figure it out?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Next on our agenda,
Other business.
other business. Thank you, because I seem to have misplaced my agenda again. I don't know what's wrong with me, guys. Other business, do we have any? I don't think so. Thank you, Diane. All right, committee reports. So tonight we have Personnel Policy and Superintendent Search Committee. Christy, are you prepared
That
for
would be me.
Okay.
Yes, I am fully prepared. Not really, but I can pretend. So we reviewed a couple of policies that are very outdated, which will not be coming to you for a little bit. But just so you know, they will be coming. I need to find the actual
all the bullying and cyber-
Yeah, it's bullying and cyberbullying, and the procedures in terms of how our administrative staff or superintendent designated person will kind of follow up on that. So it's JICK, and it is lengthy. There's lots of there's a it's about a 7-page policy, but some really interesting kind of exhibits that show step by step of a bullying investigation, and a really great flow chart that I really appreciate. So that will come back to the board one more time before it comes to you all shortly, not shortly, probably January, for your first read. So just know that. And then superintendent search. So we made the decision to run our superintendent search in-house again and not contract out with MSMA. We are working with Shelley as our liaison for the search, and we'll advertise the position in the next couple of days on Serving Schools. We are going to send out a survey to our staff, our community members, and caregivers of students to gather their feedback in terms of what qualities they're looking for in our next superintendent, any kind of characteristics or qualities that they don't want to see, and any questions or concerns they have about the superintendent search. This is the exact same thing that we did when we hired Katie. But that survey is going to go live on December 2nd, and people will have about 10 days to respond. We're also going to host some listening sessions. We're going to do 2, one right after school in hopes to grab parents that might be in the pickup line, but also our teachers and staff, and then one in the evening, which will happen in January, just to help inform the types of questions that we're going to be asking our candidates. Shelley, help me out. When did we say we were going to start reviewing? We'll be reviewing applications the end of January, hoping to do interviews after February vacation, so we have a pretty good understanding of who we are going to hire and have them on to start as Katie retires. So if you know anyone that is looking for an amazing district to work for, we are currently hiring a superintendent.
All right, thank you, Christy. And I still haven't found my paper one, but I have a virtual one. So next up is our board member comments. Go ahead, Diane.
I want to say thank you to the school district for offering virtual parent-teacher conferences, because I heard from some community members they were very happy they were able to do that for their student with families not being able to get daycare and anything like that. So that is amazing that we can still do that for them.
Go ahead, Laura.
I just also wanted to thank the teachers and staff at the high school. We were late signing up, and our kiddos' teacher was so generous to take some time before they actually started and squeeze us in. And I also had Mrs. Rennie join our meeting as well. So it was nice to kind of see people in buildings and connecting with teachers, and appreciate all that they do. And then I also wanted to thank Chief Baker and Tony Landry of Sabatis for partnering with Mark on getting some discussion happening around the signs for the middle school safety, the safety of those kiddos. And then I also encouraged as a Sabatis resident, the meeting last night, the board to review the resource officer in Sabatis and what opportunities there are for the district for that. And lastly, I did hear a lot about the art, gifted and talented art process and the amazing food that Colby College has. It was a buffet and it was beautiful. It was the word. So I appreciate all the work that they did to help organize that and give those kiddos an opportunity to venture out.
Anybody else?
Shameless plug, come see me at the craft fair on December 7th. I'll be selling my art prints and ornaments and greeting cards and things like that. They're also having Kids Corner, so as far as I know, there's like 5 kid vendors there this year, which is really cool. My daughter's selling her stuff there.
See, that wasn't so selfish.
Another plug.
You plugged other kiddos.
Yeah.
Right.
And the PTA is looking for donations of casseroles, baked goods, and other things. Look for the Sign Up Genius on Facebook.
Okay, anything else? All right, I just want to thank my board member colleagues. We come here every 2 weeks. We sit here way too long, talk way too much. But I think I think it's good. I think we're making headway. We're all focusing on the right end goal. So thank you. On to number 11 on our agenda, executive session. Got to make it quick to enter into executive session for the purpose of
So
one
moved.
MRSA 40560 labor negotiations and one MRSA 40568 personnel.
Second.